I don't think it helps women to say like, here's the equivalent of the man's ranking, but it's like a really low ELO and it's like worse at chess. I think it's like kind of not helpful. But in the case of like things like women's FIDE Master and like these specific women's only leagues in chess, I don't think they do any good. I think they do harm.
Yeah, it's less than what watch men's sports, but there are people that watch like women's sports, especially women. Like,
so I don't think that it's as nearly as large as the number of people who watch men's sports, including women, right? Even if we looked at just women, I would assume that like less of them would be watching women's sports. If we look at people overall, it's definitely the case. Less watch women's sports.
But I mean, like, I know that women's soccer has gotten larger.
Maybe
Europe. There are like women's like
wait, that's not a maybe. You're accusing me of weaseling out, but that's definitely not a maybe, right? We both know that's true.
That more women watch men's sports than women's sports?
That the viewer count for men's sports is wildly higher than women's sports.
Yeah, it's for sure higher. But you're making it sound like nobody watches women's sports, right? There are like huge celebrities that everybody knows. Like everybody knows.
I never said nobody watches it. I just think it's a very small number of people who already watch it.
Okay, there were 82 million viewers of the Women's Cup final for football, for soccer. Okay, so there are people that watch women's sports.
For soccer. You said there are
82 million.
Yeah, no,
people.
I didn't say there were no people. You're just strawmanning me here. I didn't say there were no people who watched
those 82 million viewers that are watching all women compete are now non-existent. They're going to be watching men compete because you're eliminating that division.
Men's sports received 96.3% of airtime, with women's sports 1.6%. Gender neutral topics 2.1%. So it's just not a maybe. It's just a yes. Like just women's sports are watched less. This isn't like a hot take.
I'm not disagreeing with you. You're making it sound like it's basically irrelevant.
I'm not sure what you mean by basically irrelevant.
It sounds like you're basically saying that like not that many people watch women's sports, so if we get rid of it, we're not losing much anyway.
No, I'm not saying that if we got rid of it entirely, we're not losing much anyways. I'm saying that like not that many people watch women's sports, so having this like mixed division, I don't think it would lead to a huge decrease in the number of like, I don't know, like female celebrity athletes. I think people would still like trend around them and they still like give them sponsorships, etc. We might even see like more people watching these lower rank. We might even see more people watching these like lower ranking sports than we did before.
So somebody like Serena Williams, she wouldn't exist anymore. Nobody would know who the fuck she is, right? She would be some random like rank 500 tennis player. I mean, she'd be the best woman, but like nobody would know.
If she's if she's the best woman in the sport, right? Serena Williams, people will care and like notice that.
How do you know?
Because I think it's like, well, obviously you can't know anything about the future, right? But I think it's pretty reasonable to say like being the number one women's player, there are a lot of people who are going to care about that in and of itself and be like, wow, this is a exceptional woman at the sport, and I'm going to give her exceptional amounts of attention, despite the fact that she's not the best at the sport. I think this will still happen.
She's not going to get like, why? She's not going to make it to any teams. There's not going to be anybody televising those matches. There's not going to be like, who's looking to sponsor? I mean, like, I only have my first-hand experience only in esports, so maybe it's different in sports. Like, who the fuck in esports sponsors like the 1,000th best player? Like, nobody's on these teams, or if there are these teams, people get paid like $20 a month.
Is the 1,000th best player in esports like the? I don't really know about esports. Is it like the number one woman in esports is like the 1,000th best player?
It's probably close to that. There's like a couple of standout women because it's a lot less physically demanding, but for the most part, it's like 99.
Plenty of people are sponsoring them, right? Like the top woman player that you can think of in esports. I'm sure the
biggest places where women get recognition are like in all women's leagues. Is how it used to go for CS:GO.
You think the top female esports players are like they're not getting any attention? I know in chess they do, right? The top chess players and plus top women's chess players get lots of attention.
Chess has women's divisions.
They have women's FIDE Master rankings, which I think should probably also be gotten rid of. They're kind of a silly rank, right?
Why?
Right. Because I don't think it helps women to say like, here's the equivalent of the man's ranking, but it's like a really low ELO and it's like worse at chess. I think it's like kind of not helpful.
Because it's hard for women to compete in some of these things. Like,
why is it hard for them to compete?
For a number of physiological reasons. That depends on the sport.
At chess?
What you want to talk about? It potentially, maybe.
What is the physiological reason for why it's hard for them to compete at chess?
It seems like neurologically the way the boys engage with things might be a little bit different than the way the girls engage with things. I don't know. It could be.
It's different, but why are they worse at chess?
If your position here is that you win if I can't exactly detail you the neurological processes by which men are able to manipulate video games.
No, that's not my position. I just want you to.
You've totally beat me. All I'm saying is that broadly speaking,
I'm not trying to gotcha you here. I just want to understand your position better.
when you look at the history of things like video games, you look at the history of things like chess, it seems like men are way more competitive in these arenas than women are, such that women are not competitive at the highest levels. It might be the
So do you
case
think
that maybe it's all
it might be social
socialization or whatever,
pressure?
but it could be.
It might.
But if you eliminate all the women's spaces for them right now, then women just disappear. They cease to exist in these spaces.
I don't think women's. I don't think so. I think that if you eliminate women's spaces there, I think a lot of the socialization, a lot of that social pressure, I think it even mitigates some of the social pressure in things like chess, for example, where the women players who are like, obviously women on average have higher IQs. I don't think it's unlikely that women players will still be competing in chess and even doing so more so now that they're not viewed as like second class chess players, for example.
Women can go and compete with men right now if they
No,
want.
I agree.
In any
good
sport,
thing.
women could do this.
Oh, I agree. But in the case of like things like women's FIDE Master and like these specific women's only leagues in chess, I don't think they do any good. I think they do harm.
So, but all the women that are getting any recognition or doing anything there would just cease to exist in your world. They would go compete with men. They'd lose to middling, like
No,
not even grandmasters, and then they'd just be done.
No, I don't think they'd be just done. I think that women would still be competing in chess. Like you said, they already do compete, right? In like the
Not with men,
the open matches in chess. They do compete with men. Yes, they do.
My understanding is that at the highest levels of chess, when you're talking about like grandmasters and stuff, it's almost impossible for women to be competitive at these levels. Can somebody in chat fact check me if I'm wrong? That's my understanding, is that at the highest levels of chess, it's very, 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 very hard for any women to be competitive.
So it's hard for women to be competitive is very different from your initial claim, which was like there are not women players who are playing at these high levels, right? There are women who are like
so someone
just
is saying
GMs,
that the highest
not
rated,
women's GM.
Someone is saying that the highest rated woman is 200 elo below like the highest rated man.
That would be like that would be like 2,800 or something or 2,700 or something. That's massive. That's huge. That's like way above. That's super GM level, right?
Sure. So that means that in like every large open tournament, assuming that it's like all mixed, you're never going to see women in what, like the top 4 or top 8.
You'll never see women in the top. It depends on the it depends on what like skill level we're talking about within chess. We don't want to like pair up like the like super GMs, right? With like the IMs or whatever, right? We're not doing that. Generally, the people will compete within like their own skill ranking. I think chess is actually a great example of what I'm proposing.
The highest ranked women's chess player is ranked 93 in the world, and women's elo is a bit inflated because of like the tournaments they play in. Is that true, or
is that? I don't know if they're 93 specifically. Is it Judith Polgar or something, or is it somebody else?
I don't know the names. I don't follow professional chess that much.
Okay. Yeah. So the
so
point
you
I'm
think,
making
so
is
broadly speaking, you think that
I still think this. Well, really quick. Hold on, just a second. Just a second. I think when we take a look at like even if we take a look at chess specifically, right? I don't know enough about esports to comment there, but in chess specifically, we could take a look at the highest rated women, and they do get attention. They do get like they do get sponsorships. And the biological advantages that you might say men have, even though I agree it's possible they exist, I don't think they're significant enough to warrant something like women's FIDE Master existing, right? Where we give women this like lower ranking, where we pretend it's the same as the higher ranking, and everyone sort of acknowledges that it's worse, right?
I don't think anybody pretends that it's the same, but
well, the naming is kind of the same. So women's FIDE Master versus FIDE Master, women's IM versus IM, right? It's like the women version of the normal rank. Yeah, but isn't it kind of? Don't you think it's like? Do you think it really helps women socially to have the like a shitty version of the title called like the women's version?
More than never getting to hold any title ever, yeah.
Well, but plenty of women hold non-women's titles, right? There are women who are grandmasters, but not women's grandmasters. There are women who are like super GMs, even that's not a title, right? But there are women who are like very, very high ranking in chess. And
yeah,
I don't think it's like I don't think you don't have any title at all because you don't have a women's title.
First of all, so we're arguing about chess, which is probably going to have one of the least gaps ever because it's one of the least physically demanding things. And even in chess, you're talking about like 1 or 2 exceptions, and there are no women super GMs or whatever. You're literally talking about
there are none.
1 or 2 exceptions. There are 0 women super GMs. There are like 1 or 2 sub 20 super GMs, is what people are saying.
Okay, 0 is very different than sub 20. Super GMs are already a very small group, right? They're like what?
No,
like,
people are saying, hold on. People are saying there are sub 20 super GMs, and none of them are women currently. The highest rated woman is 2650. Super GMs are 2700 plus.
Highest rated woman ever. The highest rated woman ever was, I know Judith Polgar was at least 2735, right?
Maybe at one point in time. I'm talking about currently.
Yeah. So the thing is, like, super GMs are like the chatter said, I'm guessing less than 20 people. So obviously there's going to be like a very, very small amount of super GMs. I don't think that's like a it's like, yeah, there's like a small amount of like women in total in chess. The fact
Sure,
that
I'll
like
give
there's a
it.
small
Just
amount means like these
sure.
extremely really quick, these
Back.
extremely exceptional cases are very unlikely to be this very small group, right?
Yeah, backing up to like the broader point, right? So even in chess, where there's like very
Sure.
little like physically demanding thing, where we still see a pretty big chasm in skill from the highest level man versus the highest level woman. And you're saying that if we
What do you think that
eliminate the,
is?
it could be physiological reasons, it could be social reasons. I don't know why. I'm not ready to break down the functions of the brain that explicitly determine why
What is
people are
your?
different.
I'm not gonna I'm not gonna hold you to it as an absolute statement. Is you just have like a wild guess or something, just so we can like at least do intuition pumps or something to talk about the conversation we're having.
My guess is that physiologically, men and women are probably wired a bit differently to be better at certain things. And then because of a small difference, socially, we probably drive this difference to much greater like heights.
Okay, so you think there's like a very large amount of like social pressure that causes these small differences to be much larger. I think these small differences I'm sure they exist one way or the other, right? Like in one direction or the other direction. I'm just not sure which that direction is. It seems like women have higher IQs on average, for example. So it seems like social pressures would be like the primary driving factor for why we see an underrepresentation of women. I don't think the social pressures are solved by having things like, for example, like women's FIDE master. I think it harms them and pressures them out of the sport. I don't think it helps them into it.
So why would every single woman athlete disagree with you? Have you ever talked to a woman athlete before that agrees that
Wait.
they should eliminate all women's athletic events?
Do we have polling data that shows that the average woman athlete doesn't want trans women in sports? Would you
I
say
don't know.
we'll
I'm
push
just
them out of
talking about
sports entirely?
eliminating. I'm just talking about eliminating. You're trying to say like, oh, it's definitely harmful. It's bad for them. Why do so many women compete? Why don't they just go compete with men then if they think that all these things are so bad?
Well, it seems like they're okay with competing with trans women in their sports, right? It seems like the female athletes don't have like a
Well, this is a
tremendous issue with
different.
that. There are some that do, right? But
This is a
it's different.
different.
I thought earlier you were using them interchangeably.
No. This is a different question. You're talking about right now. We can get to the trans woman question, but right now it sounds like you're talking about the idea that these women's only things are harmful to women. If that's the case,
In
then why do
some cases, they're definitely harmful to women, and in some cases, I think the harm is lessened. I think in the case of chess, it's just easily the case. It's harmful to women, right?
So where are all of these women speaking out against these things? Like,
I I don't think it's really relevant. It's just kind of it's almost like
just
a really like
decide from the
baseline logical
outside
fallacy.
as a man that they're okay. All right, maybe okay. So moving on, I guess to the trans women cis women thing. If so, it sounds like you might believe that trans women have some kind of physiological advantage from their prior being a cis male before transitioning or whatever. Or I don't know if it's
Sure,
cis
yeah.
male, but yeah. So even if that is the case, though, you're still okay with them competing against cis women. Why?
I think they're small enough in number that they're never going to like really push out women from the sport. I think obviously if it was every trans woman was competing in sports, that very small number of like I think it's like they're what like 0.3% of the population would be enough. But I think that in the same way that we still let people who are like people who have used steroids in the past, they're allowed to compete once they're off steroids for a while. I think it's fair. Those people have a much larger advantage from those steroids than trans women do from their
Wait,
testosterone.
what is the
Yeah, go
first of
ahead.
all, that's not true. But also, what is the
Sorry, wait.
penalty?
What isn't
If you
true?
get caught using performance enhancing drugs, how long are you banned
Mhm.
for? From
I wouldn't know, but I know it's not going to be it's not going to be that period of like this incredibly long like you're never able to compete line.
I feel like it would be. I might be wrong. I feel like if you got caught in college sports using performance enhancing drugs, you'd be able to compete again before you graduate.
I know there are like UFC competitors who have been caught using performance enhancing drugs and are able to like be let back in, right? Like John Jones, right?
In professional sports, maybe
Am I
sure, but
mistaken?
like in college, can you? People are saying it's 2 to 4 years in college. So okay, but I mean,
Okay,
like,
so it's only two to
if
four
you want
years
to
in
have a
college.
discussion of like, do you think if you're allowed to use performance enhancing drugs, like, should you be allowed to, or should you ever be allowed to compete again? Like, I don't know if I'd necessarily be opposed to a lifetime ban. I
Yeah,
guess
I
it would
think
depend
so.
on the. It depend on it. Well, I don't know. It depend on the drug, I guess, and depend on how long you're using it for. But
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. That's 2 years doesn't seem like a very doesn't seem like a very long time. And if we're letting them back into the sports, I don't think it's unfair to say that like it would be fine to let trans women into the sports after like 2 years of HRT at like sub female testosterone levels.
well, first of all, the testosterone levels aren't sub female; they're still like 4 to 5 times higher. But secondly, if we can show like studies and all the research seems to be pointing towards this that trans women still inherit a lot of advantages from being male before transitioning. I don't know if like just being off for a few years is like evens the
You
playing
keep
field there.
you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but like the studies I thought were like pretty inconclusive, and there were ones that like went one way or the other. And I think you've even said that on stream that you think they're like a lot on both sides of the issue, and it's like really hard to make a conclusion based on those.
No, if I don't know when you heard me say this on stream, but what I said was that a long time ago, my position was a lot more ambiguous on this because it seemed like the studies went both ways. But in the past few years, I think that the overwhelming amount of research is pointing towards a pretty clear direction. That now we have longitudinal studies that are showing that even after 3 years, trans women still have a pretty significant advantage from being able to train in a male body for a long time. So even
So
three
what do you
years
think
post transition.
Oh, 3 years while having trained in a male body the entire time.
No. 3 years while being on HRT, they still have significant advantages.
After having trained in a male body for a long time, you said, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if somebody's like at like a college level, this wouldn't be an advantage. They'd have like, I guess they'd have like a male body as a child or whatever, but they're not really getting like the actual normal male body, right? So the advantage there would be less significant, correct?
Depends on when they transition, but otherwise, no, it wouldn't be.
Yeah, before college, it would be correct. So depending on when they transition,
high school sports are really important. What do you mean?
Oh, I completely agree that high school sports are important. That just doesn't really address my question, which is like they're not competing with like an adult man's body, right?
Yeah, if you're starting to go through puberty as a male at like 12 or 13, yeah, you're getting
You're not really an adult man
of,
at 13 or 15.
I'm pretty sure your testosterone as a male peaks at it's like 18 to 21.
Yeah, but the advantages you get from that testosterone don't.
Absolutely. If you compare a 13-year-old weightlifter that's a male to a 13-year-old weightlifter that's female, he's going to be losing like literally 3 times the weight. Like
no. This is irrelevant. You're comparing males to females. We're comparing like young men to old men, right? We're comparing young men to older men. So this is like you went over and like compared a completely different category.